Welcome to the HireLearning Podcast, the show where ambition meets strategy. This is your go-to space for career truth, financial empowerment, leadership growth, and real conversations that are unfiltered and uncut. If you're ready to elevate your career, confidence, and future, then you're in the right place. Join our co-hosts, HR professionals Yolanda, Erin, and Caroline, right here, right now, for an episode of HireLearning.
Welcome to an episode of HireLearning. Hey, Caroline and Erin, how you all doing?
Hi, ladies.
Hey, doing good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Good.
But you all know there's been quite a controversy going over the internet, through social media, mainstream, on college campus. Everybody is talking about Durags and Bonnets. So we have to get in on this conversation. So this episode is about bonnets, durags, and even PJs. Is it a personal choice or is it a professional problem? Who gets to decide what is appropriate? Personally, I don't think this is a cultural thing because it's not part of my culture to do a durag, PJs, or a hair wrap in public. But this is the question of many people, whether you're a student, college student, or parent, or professional manager, or hiring manager. This is coming across everyone's minds in our culture, it seems to be. So that is what this episode is on. This episode is for anybody who's seeking a job, who's seeking to hire, who's getting ready to start their freshman year on campus, or even preparing for elementary, junior high, or high school. Today is going to matter to our listeners what they walk away with. And I hope that they could get some insight from us. Does colleges have a responsibility to prepare students for environments where appearance, presentation, and personal judgment matter? What do you all think, ladies?
Oh my gosh, I've talked to so many people about this issue and this topic over the last week or two, and everybody seems to have a very, very strong opinion about it. And I'm always the antagonist in the conversation because I'm like, hey, what's wrong with rolling out the bed and going to class? I mean, we've all done it. I did it when I was in college. But was that the most appropriate thing to do? I would venture to say probably not. Most days I got up, I got dressed, I combed my hair, put on the outfit, and I headed to class. But if I'm running late, I'm gonna run out the door. I mean, I might snatch the durag, the bonnet off, and leave it on the bed. But still, like pajamas, sweatshirt and hoodie, sweatpants and hoodie might have been the outfit of the day. Even though that's not pajamas, but close enough.
Absolutely. I think that this conversation is humorous to a certain extent. I think it lends to a greater conversation, especially as it pertains to recent indicators that have come out for Q3 about job numbers, right? Mm-hmm. And the realities of this very not so great job market, competitive job market, just fewer job growth occurring, and how that transcends onto college campuses where we have the class of 2026. You also have students from the class of 2025 that are not gainfully employed. And not to dismiss the hopes and dreams of recent college graduates, but even those folks that have been subject to layoffs, have lost their jobs. This competitive job market has been ongoing. The competition is fierce. And how do you show up right in this job market? So I think this conversation, although it's catered to some of the discussions, good, bad, or in between on the college campus, it lends also some conversations about career preparedness and what things do I need to do to ensure that I am showing up not only physically prepared for day, but how do I show up every day?
Yes, absolutely. And I don't know, have you all ever had a time when you ran out the house and you wish you had not?
And that's when you run into someone that you didn't anticipate running into. I know I have. And
Yes.
there's nothing like, oh, I'm just running out here to grab some milk, some cereal, or what have you. Just finish this workout. Hair all over my head. Not wanting you to get too close to me in the grocery store, and I'm gonna go and check myself out. And you turn around and you're like, oh, hey. That can be quite, and has been for me, quite embarrassing. Thankfully, it wasn't someone that I knew from work, but it still was embarrassing.
Well, it certainly has happened to me, and it happened to me during a moment where I wish I had not come out the house like that. And I ran right into someone, the last person that I wanted to see. I ran right into it. And I know they went back and said what a hot mess I looked. And I very rarely come out the house looking crazy. Well, that was just one of those moments that I did. But guess what? I haven't again. Yes. So for me, I think that I'm against wearing bonnets and durags and PJs in the classroom. For one, if you think about it, those things are PJs are for the bed. So if you're rolling out of bed, that means you haven't prepared yourself for the day anyway. And you still have on what you slept in overnight, because I can't imagine you getting up and then purposely putting this stuff on to go out the house.
I mean,
I don't see it.
I look at it. I mean, you can look at both sides of this coin, right? Because college students are college students. And I understand that as the Black community, we are held to a different standard. But I'm like, why is that? Like, why can't our college students roll out the bed like they do at a predominantly white institution, and they go to school in pajamas and sweatpants? Who's to say that this is not okay? And why isn't there any dress codes at the PWIs?
Well, how do we know that it's not a dress code there?
We haven't heard about it. This is national news, seems like.
And nor do I care.
That's when you get into the whole, and this is just my thought process. Negativity earns clicks. Okay? A negative perception, negative news in whatever venue we're talking about, social media, regular news outlets, newspapers, believe it or not, negativity sells. Negativity earns more clicks. So I look at it from the standpoint of the dress code, the dress code requirements, right? If we're talking about specifically this university, this private universities reserve the right to institute a dress code, hence the benefits of attending a private institution. The same types of conversations have always and continue to occur when you're talking about private elementary schools or private schools. Their dress codes a lot of times. So this is just kind of like, to me, recycled, kind of like a recycled conversation sometimes when it comes to who is making the requirement. Is it justified? Do I have to comply?
Well, I feel historically, Blacks have always been very intentional about our dress and our dress code. And whether they were dressing for the dignity of servicing our community, for community pride, for resilience, because of racist stereotypes, across our community, we knew how to dress to go to church. There even used to be a time when we would come in the house and change out of our street clothes into our play clothes, and was required to do so in those young elementary age stage. I just feel like that we are judged harshly as a people. Why give them something to talk about? And you going to a university, and the reason why you're going there is to prepare you for your life endeavors. And why shouldn't a school of any sort or business have a dress code about their institution on how they want people to show up? I don't think it matters if they are a janitor or a college student, or if they are a teacher or or some other profession at that school. There's standards in which that they should have some uniformity that does not include a do-rag or a bonnet.
Okay.
I think that there's, when you're talking also about career readiness, and once you get out of college, once you get out of school, whether we're talking about a 2-year, you're working towards your associate's degree, right? You're working towards your CDL license. Let's say you're in an apprentice program aiming to get your HVAC certification. There are requirements for, if I'm an HVAC repair person, I know myself, anytime that I've called out someone to take a look at my heating or air conditioning, I have not seen them show up in socks, in some sandals or flip-flops. And the reason why, I would think, again, I'm not an HVAC person by trade. I just know that they earn a great living and they cost a lot just to do an initial assessment. When that person shows up, that repair person shows up, they usually have on some type of boot that is securing their toes aren't out, right? And they are clothed in some type of uniform, usually also with the name of their company. That appears to be the requirement typically that they may show up in. I'm using that example to say that a lot of different careers, okay, are military personnel. From day one, once you begin that military training in terms of basic training, once you sign that dotted line that I'm joining up to serve my country, one of the key things of basic training is to have uniformity. The same BDUs, the same pants, the same shirts. There are restrictions in terms of how you have to wear your hair, and those requirements exist and have existed for years and decades for a reason. So when you see an airman, when you see a Navy person in their uniform, there's a certain degree of uniformity and recognition, and that brand is out there. When you're talking about your colleges and universities, there's a great deal, I think, of flexibility, and that's the benefit of being in college. But to your point, Yolanda, going into the workforce or when I step outside, how am I wanting to represent my brand? And this, like I said, lends for a very engaging conversation.
Okay. Erin, you have any more thoughts about that before I ask my next question?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my cousin the other day, and he was talking about how he went to visit my grandmother's brother. This was years and years ago, and he was in a nursing home. And he said when he came out of his room, he had on a suit. And he thought to himself, this man is in a nursing home. Why on earth does he have on a suit? And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, please elaborate. And he was saying that even though he was in a nursing home and nobody else was dressed around him like in this type of attire, he took so much pride in his appearance and the fact that people were coming to visit him, and he just wanted to look nice, that he took time to put on a suit to visit with his family. And I said, that kind of lends to this discussion. Like, we as a community, right, Black people in general, like you said, Yolanda, we've always taken pride in our appearance. That's where you get Black dandyism. That's where you get, if you look at the 60s, the 70s, and how people dressed, and all throughout Black history, I feel like nowadays, some of that pride is gone. And I don't know why that is or what has occurred that people really don't care too much about their appearance anymore. But I feel like we need to get to the root of that, because if our kids don't care enough about themselves to get up and get dressed and go to class, where have we lost our way as a community?
Wow.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful story. I admire that he took time out for himself and for his visitors or family. And I really think it matters. When does personal expression conglomerate with preparation for the professional real world?
I think it's ongoing, right? What you spoke about, Erin, it sounds as like that gentleman who was in the nursing home was from a different era versus now. And the reality is, with time, with history, things change. Some of those changes are great, some not so great. Taking pride in how you walk out the house, I think that's learned, some of it is learned behavior. It didn't happen overnight for me to realize, oh, wow, okay, I'm the dinosaur here, in terms of folks thinking that pajamas are a staple in a college classroom. But I also like to remember the importance of, in college and during the college years, that's a time for growth. That's a time for an opportunity to meet people from all different backgrounds and all different areas, right? And a time to grow and learn yourself. So perhaps you may have started out freshman year, sophomore year, thinking that, the PJs work. Hopefully by the time you get ready to cross that threshold and get that degree, you have visited the Career Center. Most colleges and universities have a Career Center, right? You have introduced yourself to those folks in the Career Center. You have built your resume. You have engaged in some preparation for interviewing and learned how to show up in terms of an interview, with knowing the difference between professional attire, business attire, and business casual.
Let me tell you, when they get to college, that is a competition for opportunity. And the person sitting next to you in a class who may be wearing a bonnet or may not be wearing a bonnet may be overlooked for opportunity because of the way in which they're sitting there. They don't even have to say a word. But I know for myself that if I was a professor at a university and I know that there's internships coming, I know that I need someone to work my office hours. I need a person who, lead or support the classroom. Or I've been contacted by career centers or employers about students. And I know that I'm going to select someone that I know is going to show up and show out. If I have to speculate or be concerned about how somebody going to roll out of bed and get to a place of employment, I'm not selecting them. And they may be an A student.
I got a story about that. One time I got promoted at work. I was in my 20s, and I had this boss who didn't like me very well. But I had a bad attitude back then, so I get it, right? But she promoted me anyway, and she said, "I'm promoting you because you come to work and you dress nice every day." And part of me was offended, like, not because of the hard work that I'm doing, not because I'm doing a good job at my job, not because of anything, not my performance, nothing, just I look nice. But that taught me something as well. Like, a lot of times people do judge you and reward you, accept you, etc., based on your appearance and how you show up in a space. You could be the dumbest person ever, dumb as a box of rocks, but if you look nice and you got on Tom Ford, whatever, not saying that you have to wear designer clothes, but you looking nice goes a long way. You don't have to open your mouth and let them know that you don't know nothing. Just show up and look good, and you probably will get picked for something, which is crazy to me.
And that lends itself to what triggers for me is the whole likability factor. And how the likability factor is not necessarily something that is theoretical. It's not something that is always communicated, but in any environment, right? Whether we're talking about entry level, whether we're talking about that first internship, or you are a mid-career professional, there is always a likability factor that is integrated into the equation. And what I think we're all saying, just saying differently, is the fact that that likability factor is always there, whether you want it to be or not. There's a degree of how you show up that is recognized. If we're talking about an in-person interview, you know, when people see you, how you show up matters.
And so what I'm hearing, that basically historically people have to change how they dress to prove that they're intelligent, capable, and deserving of an opportunity. If you're saying how you show up matters. And I do believe how you show up matters. I interviewed a young lady who had a very revealing shirt on during an interview, a black see-through shirt with a red bra actually, but her resume was fabulous. But I knew that I could not make a decision between her and another candidate who resumes was just about the same. I selected a person who showed up on time and well prepared for the interview and did not have revealing clothes on.
And again, I think that really stems from a variance of several influences. How you're raised, right? How you were taught. Some people are taught, some people, unfortunately, they don't have those models, those positive models, so they really do not know. When you get into a college setting, you know, depending upon your major and things like that, when I attended college, I was required to take speech. In order to earn our undergraduate degrees, everyone had to take this speech class, this rudimentary speech class. I didn't understand the value of it, but it was at 8 o'clock, and I had the class at 8 o'clock in the morning. And our teacher, our professor, was very clear from day one of passing out that syllabus. If we did not show up in professional attire 3 days a week for this speech class, we wouldn't pass the class. He set the standard, and it was very clear. And it did not take me long as a freshman to see how serious he was. He demonstrated by certain people showed up without their tie, without their suit jackets, and they could not enter the classroom. And if you weren't present for the class, you know, you have so many absences, you didn't pass. So that years ago set a certain standard and bar for me. We can all agree that how you show up from day one, that sets the stage, and it's important.
Well, when do you begin teaching children that different environments may call for different ways to present themselves?
Oh, early. My girls know very early. You dress for school differently than you dress for church, differently than you dress if we're going to the movies or if we're going outside to play.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that I do agree that children are, you can teach them, they can teach you as parents, right? But you're responsible for teaching them a variety of things. And all of this is a part of life, right? There's an expectation and certain requirements in terms of how they conduct themselves in the class. That's when you get the smiley faces, that's when you get the stars. And in terms of certain benchmarks that you are supposed to prepare your children when they begin school. So in the course of preparation, how to dress, how to show up, the whole back to school monopoly is based on attire. I don't care whether you're talking about elementary school all the way up to college. School uniforms, some school districts have required uniforms. But in that same vein, if you as a parent, if you are doing your due diligence to ensure the proper attire to play flag football, baseball, right? Then why not ensure that he understands that when you attend church or you attend the theater, that you can't wear your cleats and you can't wear your football helmet.
Yeah.
So is this code switching, or is this just simply social intelligence?
I don't think it's code switching. I think when you show up as a gymnast, and look at the Olympics, gymnasts have a certain attire. I don't recall seeing a gymnast in wearing cleats to perform. When ice skaters, when your bobsledders, they have specific uniforms. I don't know if I call it just showing up and being prepared for the environment in which you're entering.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of social intelligence. I attended a funeral recently, not that long ago, and I had some family members who showed up to this funeral in sweats. And I was like, no. Like, I mean, they didn't look horrible. Their sweats looked clean and new, and they were cute outfits, but they were not funeral outfits. And I don't know if they were uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable for them. Everybody else in the church was dressed in some sort of, dress clothes that you would wear to a funeral or to a church event. So I do think it takes a level of not only social intelligence, but emotional intelligence, just intelligence in general, to know that, okay, this is the venue, this is the event, let me figure out what I'm going to wear.
And I would say that, how does, using that as an example, how does that translate into career readiness and career preparedness?
Well, in my opinion, and I have a personal story of my own, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. I think the younger we are, the more that we need mentors and people to help us along the way. And I know when I was in my early 20s and I just started in my career, dressing for work is not the same as dressing to go to class in college. Whereas a shirt and some jeans would be acceptable to go to class in college is not acceptable for the workplace. And I guess I never really equated those two things. I had my boss at the time, who was a black woman, pulled me to the side and said to me, look around at how all these white people in here are dressed. Do you see any of them coming in here in jeans? And I'm like, no. She like, what do they have on? I'm like, they have on suits. Most of them, suits and ties, because it's mainly white men at this particular agency. And I'm like, but the women also are wearing suits. And she was like, okay, so let me tell you that they are looking at you, they are watching you. So that day I left work and went to Macy's. I opened up my first credit card. It was a Macy's credit card. And I bought a bunch of suits. And after that, I came to work every day with a suit on. And she kind of did me like if you've seen Devil Wear Prada, when the girl started dressing different.
I love that movie.
My boss did me like that, and this was years before Devil Wear Prada came out. I would come in the office, she would turn around from her keyboard, look up and down, and turn back to her keyboard and keep working. But when it came time to go to a meeting, and she would pick one specialist to go with her, she would always pick me. And I knew why that was, because I was the one who was dressed the most professionally on the team.
I love that story. That's wonderful. I think if anybody could take anything from this episode, is understanding your environment, knowing your environment, and dress appropriately or accordingly to where you're going or what you're doing for the day. And I know that we're not saying that these college students or any students need to be dressed to the nines. Just, be clean and have a proper appearance that just doesn't include a bonnet or durag.
Yep. Leave that bonnet at home.
Yeah. And to be quite honest, in the 80s and 90s, I think it might have been even more acceptable to see a guy with a do-rag on. Especially he still had his edges and his beard or, his shape up going on. I probably didn't even mind it that much, or I probably didn't even notice it as much. But I certainly noticed it when the young men started wearing bonnets and they really big, and then the girls was wearing bonnets, and not only were they big, but they so colorful and all these patterns, and I just don't know what they're going for.
And I think this is very layered conversation. Some of this, to me, embarks on fashion and the transition of fashion and what we know as fashion, right? But the HireLearning podcast is here to also understand some of the trends, translate some of those trends, and see how those trends segue into career development, leadership, and how to navigate the workforce. And so the reality is also, I'm not saying don't be fashionable. Like I mentioned earlier, like The Devil Wears Prada, love that movie. Love Devil Wears Prada. But when you are in college, not only are you there to gain the theory and the academic piece, right? But there's a whole social learning process that's supposed to occur. And a subset of that is it should be career development. And a very important subset of career development is appearance, is cleanliness, is learning or engaging with others, having those conversations about when I'm attending a networking event as a business administration major or as an architect major or as a software engineering going to, this particular software engineering, these firms are going to be coming on X day as a career fair. Should I show up with flip-flops, an old dingy t-shirt that really are my pajamas, and expect them to take me seriously, saying, hey, I really want to come work for your company? This is a question.
No.
So, Erin, what advice would you give our audience on this topic?
I mean, obviously, dress for success. My mom used to always tell me, dress for the position you want, not for the position that you have. I value that. I thank God for my supervisor back at that old job who treated me like Miranda Priestley and looked me up and down every day. I thank God for the supervisor who promoted me just based on how I look, because it taught me all of these invaluable lessons that your appearance really does matter. When you get up in the morning, brush your teeth, wash your face, wash up. Okay, put some clothes on. It matters. People are paying attention. And my advice that I would give this audience is make sure that you put your best foot forward when you step outside your door, and that in terms of how you look.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Caroline, any last words? What advice would you give the audience?
My advice would be similar to Erin's, like how you show up always matters. I don't care if we're talking about from 25 years ago to today. How you show up on camera matters. And in this technological world in which we're advancing, AI technologies, all of that, certain rudimentary principles of cleanliness, timeliness, and taking care of your presentation, your brand. You are your brand. So why not invest that amount of time in your brand? one tool, or there's several tools, but for our college students that are getting ready to return or have already returned to colleges and are starting out afresh, if you may not know how your brand looks, or you may need to tweak your brand, improve your brand, reach out to your career center. Make an appointment at your career center. Schedule some time to work with those career center advisors to go through your resume, conduct mock interviews, some simulation interviews with on camera to ensure that you're showing up and putting your best foot forward. Lastly, I would say make sure that you have signed up with Handshake and all of these various recruitment tools. Make sure that your accounts are active and that you're readily prepared, right, for that next stake in terms of career opportunities.
Well, as it goes back to the bonnet and hairdress and pajamas and durags, I just want the audience to understand the difference between personal freedom and professional expectation, and choose very wisely. And there's a difference between cultural expression and what is a protective hairstyle accessory, and where and when it should be worn. I really think that's the bottom line. And I was in New York a couple weeks ago and went past a museum called Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT. It's at it's FIT State University in New York. And this museum is amazing because it really shows the history and exploitation of Black people and how we dressed and how we dress for success and why we dress certain ways throughout history. So I invite our audience to go take a look, visit that museum. Also, there's articles online from Compton State University, Dressing for Freedom. That's an article that I would invite the audience to go check out. And I definitely recommend reading the book, A Celebration of Black College Experience. Hey, there's resources out there for us.
Absolutely. And I would just add, really take the time, if you have not done so, and this doesn't, again, just apply to college students, but everyone, right? Check out your LinkedIn profiles. Check out your professional profiles. Update your professional profile pictures to make sure that you are being projected in the best light as you embark upon, exploring career opportunities as well. Use those tools and technologies that are out there.
Yes, Liz. I mean, this is a topic that we could discuss on and on and on, but I know in the interest of time, we probably need to go ahead and wrap this episode up. But just, you guys always reach out to us if you have any questions, any concerns. Send us an email. That's at HireLearning@gmail.com. Send us your stories, send us your questions, send us a picture of how you used to dress versus how you dress now. We would love to see. And also, don't forget, always like, follow, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.